Steve Gardner joining us, kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline from USA Today. Does a good job covering baseball in his weekly spot at 12:30 on a Thursday. How you been, Steve?
Good. I'm finally recovered, I think, from that trade deadline fury.
Well, yeah, let me get your thoughts on this first of all. We knew that Harper was never, ever going to get moved, right? I mean, whether it was leaked or not, it could be a genius play here by Rizzo, maybe to try to light a spark under his best player's fanny, because there was absolutely no way he was going to get traded. I mean, just none whatsoever. And if I'm Harper and that rumor's floating around, I'm ticked off because I'm the face of the franchise.
Yeah, but you're only the face of the franchise for another 2 weeks or another 2 months. So and then he's face of anybody's franchise he wants to be. But no, I think you and I have talked about this many times in previous chats, that Harper's not going anywhere. The Nationals are all in for this season, and they always have been. And a little, 5.5 game deficit, even though they're not playing well and they weren't over 500, that wasn't going to change that. This is still a very talented team. And now they're not only are they keeping Harper, but they're taking a few steps to kind of get rid of some of maybe the people who aren't on board all the way over the last couple of days.
Well, and you mentioned that, and now you got that story, that potential leak coming out of that Nationals locker room. I mean, look, I think when things are going south, sometimes you have to make a move. I'm not going to say to clean house, but I said this yesterday. If you're the Braves and you're the Phillies, you know eventually, I'm not going to say Washington's going to fully figure it out and get on track, but it's not like the Phillies or the Braves are really distancing themselves in the NL East. And you talk about the last 10 to 15 games of the season, the Washington Nationals, they play the Braves and the Phillies a ton of times.
Exactly. It's it's like if you're playing golf and you're leading a golf tournament and you're playing not to lose. You know that something can happen to you and something can happen dramatically to those people behind you that can change things in a flash. And I think, a big winning streak, obviously, for the Nationals could do that. And they have the talent to be able to pull one off, like the Pirates did with their 11-game win streak. But, at some point, I think that's why the Phillies and the Braves made some moves, some proactive moves that I thought were really good to, kind of give themselves a little bit of a boost heading into these final 2 months.
What'd you make of the game for the Mets the other night against the Nationals? I mean, it's funny. We were talking last week, and I had someone on about the Mets, and I just said at this point you have to just flat out clean house, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes you just can't fire a guy, and you got all these injuries and down years and a bunch of veterans that are just Band-Aid guys. I mean, I think ultimately, the Mets, like I said, they're a team that's going to turn around, and they're going to spend just enough to be a little competitive, but they're not going to spend enough, and they're not going to blow it up. So, I mean, next year we're going to be talking about this team, and they're going to be in the same spot. I mean, again, at the end of the day, do you see any major wholesale changes at the end of the season here?
Not really. I mean, you've got a directionalist franchise right now that doesn't know what it wants to do. I think, with the opportunity there with Steven Matz and Zach Wheeler, the Mets had commodities that a lot of people were looking for. The Brewers never did get their starting pitcher that they were looking for. I think Wheeler could have helped them. And the Mets had those guys to be able to sell, and a market that seemed to be pretty flush with people who wanted to buy, and yet they held on to them. To think that the Mets are going to compete next year with the roster that they have, I think is kind of silly. And as you said, if they're not going to spend money, and we haven't seen any evidence over the past, 8 years, 10 years, that they really want to go in and spend a whole lot of money to improve the club that way, then, yeah, we're just going to get the same old thing next year.
When you look at some of these moves, especially by the Pirates, for instance, I mean, is that a move for Archer that do they feel that they're still in the thick of things here in the NL Central?
I think this is more of a move, maybe not so much for this year, but for the years to come. I mean, the Pirates, when they traded Garrett Cole, they traded away a number one caliber starter that they had under control for a couple of years at a fairly reasonable price. They were able to get somebody similar to that in Chris Archer. And I think that with Ray Searage, he's had a lot of success in taking guys that weren't great elsewhere or maybe they were once upon a time. But getting them back to that high level, I think they feel like they could do the same with Chris Archer, and the opportunity was there. I think it also says a lot about the couple of formerly highly rated prospects that they sent to Tampa Bay in exchange. Those guys were the stars of their farm system, and Austin Meadows had come up and done a little bit, but Tyler Glasnow was not good in the major leagues, even though he was outstanding in the minors. So I think they felt like those guys had progressed as far as they were going to go, and they wanted to go get Archer. I don't think that he's going to be able to make a difference and help them jump over, the Brewers and Cubs in the Central. Maybe a wild card is a possibility, but teams just aren't making moves to get into a one-game playoff these days. I think this is more of a look ahead to the future and what they can build for next year.
And it's ironic you bring up the Pirates because they always typically run in hot pitching with that one-game playoff. We've seen it over the last, several times at least in the last decade. I'm curious, you got the Yankees and you got the Red Sox monster series right on the horizon. And again, I said this yesterday, and I know it's never going to happen because I will just have to keep myself away from sharp objects if Sonny Gray has to pitch in a big spot. But, I mean, he's a flat-out dog. And you know what else I noticed, too? He's always shaking off Austin Romine. It always seems like he's shaking off anything that he's asking him to throw. And to me, he's not a New York pitcher. And he's just not a big game pitcher. And how do you rely on him going forward?
I don't think you can. And did you see the photo of him coming off the field?
I couldn't take. What are you grinning about? I mean, honestly, what is so funny? You got lit up again. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't see how they can count on him for anything more than just eating innings the rest of the regular season. It would surprise me if he's on the postseason roster. It really would, because now that they went out and got Jay Happ, who with the disabled list stint, he should be okay in another couple of weeks after he gets healthy. But do you need any more than Severino, Tanaka, and Happ? I think once you get into the postseason, I don't think so. I really don't, because of the strength of the bullpen. And so you just get those guys, throw them out there. If you need a fourth starter, maybe you even go with a bullpen day.
Yeah.
I think they have the depth to be able to do that. And, thank you very much. And we got Jay Happ. And, it says an awful lot about what the Yankees feel about Sonny Gray and his ability to perform going forward down the stretch.
How about the timing, too, for the Red Sox having to put Sale on the DL as well? So they'll throw out Johnson on it against CC, Porcello against Severino, and I think Eovaldi against Happ. And then they'll come back Sunday night, Price against Tanaka, which should be a nice pitching matchup, even though, my thoughts on Price. But losing Sale, short-term DL, you think, a little more cautionary. That's the way they're approaching it.
If I were the Red Sox, I would take every precaution possible because, he's the guy that they're going to be relying on. And, at this point, they even revised the news release that they sent out to emphasize that it was minor shoulder issues there. Nothing big, so they seem to feel like that there's no big deal right now. Get him healthy for this month of September and October, and everything should be fine. But I think it takes a little bit of the luster maybe off of the series this weekend, but still, you've got the Yankees, you've got the Red Sox. It's still going to be pretty exciting.
You look around the NL, and we know it's a wide-open National League with the Phillies and the Braves and the Cubs and the Brewers and the Diamondbacks and, of course, the Dodgers. You forget the Giants are in shouting distance. The Rockies are right there. But then the AL, it's top-heavy. Are the Boston Red Sox a more complete team than the Houston Astros right now?
Wow. Hard to say. I guess so, only because the Astros have those concerns. How is Carlos Correa? How's Jose Altuve? When you're missing those two guys up the middle, there are a lot of questions. And, yes, there's plenty of time, just like there's plenty of time for Chris Sale to get ready for October. But if you ask me right now, yes, the Red Sox are definitely a better and more complete team. And I'll say, too, Craig Kimbrell at the back of the bullpen, we don't know who's going to be at the back of the Astros bullpen. This trade for Roberto Osuna, I think, has all sorts of little flares and things that could explode at any time. I'm not a big guy on clubhouse chemistry. I think you develop chemistry because you win, not vice versa. But I think this could, throwing somebody in there that not everybody is on board with you acquiring, that has the potential to maybe blow up in their face. And I think the Astros certainly have to worry about that.
And lastly, and I'm totally not poking the bear here with Baltimore, but I had to take a double take. They're 41.5 games out of first place. I mean, I'm just leaving it right there for you. I mean, you can do it.
Here's the thing, and Dan Duquette basically said this in no uncertain terms when they made their deals at the deadline: is you've got something that's not sturdy right now. Just blow the whole thing up, and that's exactly what he's doing. I think the Orioles technically were a winner at the trade deadline because they had assets that they weren't going to be able to use going forward, and get some young guys, rebuild a farm system that is in horrible shape, and just get started over again, because right now you're not going to compete with the Red Sox and Yankees. I don't even think they're going to be able to compete with the Rays next season, because the Rays look like they're going to be pretty good, and the Jays as well. Go ahead and look at 2020 and 2021, because right now their window for competing is non-existent.
Before I let you get out of here, you surprised that Adam Jones didn't waive his no-trade clause?
Not really. I think he's been there for a long time,
right.
And two more months of picking up his family and moving somewhere else.
Good point.
It's his. He's earned that, and he can be a free agent at the end of the season and then make plans from there.
Yep. All right, my friend, enjoy the Yanks and the Red Sox series. Got a lot of baseball this weekend as well, so we'll know in a couple more weeks. That's when the pennant races really start to heat up. We'll talk next Thursday. Always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
Thanks, Rich. Take care.
You too. Be well. Steve Gardner joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.